I'm Tracy Sabol. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, race to the finish. Former President Trump attends a faith-based rally in Atlanta while Vice President Harris makes another visit to the crucial state of Michigan. War in the Middle East. Israel launches its retaliation against Iran. We have analysis of what comes next. Focus on the faithful. A new report finds several U.S. states are hostile to religious nonprofits. Plus, closing Mass. The Synod on Synodality wraps up in Rome. We discuss the years-long initiative with Dr. Matthew Bunson. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thanks for being with us on the Feast of St. Simon and Jude. Our top story tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris promises to address high prices at a campaign event in Michigan, while former President Donald Trump says that he wants to bring back the American dream by defeating Harris's, quote, radical left agenda. Both presidential nominees face an extremely busy week ahead. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Yeah, Tracy, good evening to you. A very busy week, no doubt about that. This week, both campaigns hitting state after state. On Wednesday alone, Vice President Kamala Harris plans to visit North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Donald Trump has rallies in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, back to Wisconsin, and Virginia. But we begin last night, in New York City.
Former President Donald Trump fires up supporters at Madison Square Garden, saying Vice President Kamala Harris has done a terrible job.
You've destroyed our country. We're not going to take it anymore. Kamala, you're fired. Get out. Get out. You're fired.
The Trump campaign disavowed a comedian at the same rally after he made a controversial joke about Puerto Rico. Vice President Kamala Harris, headed to Michigan for a rally in Ann Arbor, told reporters today,
I think last night Donald Trump's event in Madison Square Garden really highlighted a point that I've been making throughout this campaign. He is focused and actually fixated on his grievances, on himself, and on dividing our country.
Why don't we liberate these United States?
Meanwhile, Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, speaks to supporters in Wausau, Wisconsin.
It's really important that we get out there and run up the score as much as possible, not just on Election Day, but before Election Day.
Also in the Badger State, Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Tim Walz visiting Manitowoc and Waukesha, rips Trump's age.
Elect a new generation of leadership, not a nearly 80-year-old man screaming at clouds every day, but a new generation. Chart a new way forward. We got 8 days.
And with November 5th moving in fast, President Joe Biden arrived at the polling place at the Delaware Department of Elections. After he voted, he was asked if he'll be on the trail with the vice president this week.
I've been on the trail. We talk all the time, and they're asking me to where they think I should be to help them the most. I'm going to be in Pennsylvania, going to head to Scranton and a few other places.
Now, tomorrow, Kamala Harris delivers what her campaign calls her closing argument. That'll be a speech given from the Ellipse. That's a grassy space very close here to the White House. We're also learning tonight that Donald Trump, who held a faith-related event earlier today in Georgia, who also has a rally there tonight, will be holding his election night party in Florida at the Palm Beach Convention Center. That's not far from his Mar-a-Lago club. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
All right, staying on the campaign trail and to the major battleground state of Arizona, which as of late has been embroiled in controversy. Nearly a dozen lawsuits have been filed over election integrity, and charges have been brought against individuals for intimidating poll workers. So what safeguards, if any, are election officials taking? Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with the latest on that. Eric.
Good evening, Tracy. Yes, in Arizona, 100% of the voting is done by paper ballots, so it should be pretty easy to vote and hard to cheat, right? But the Grand Canyon state has seen a number of challenges that are being played out in the courts. One involves some 218,000 ballots, people who have had full access to cast their votes without confirmation that they were even U.S. citizens. The Democratic Secretary of State recently weighed in.
Well, first and foremost, if and when something like that happens, it is absolutely vanishingly rare. No system is perfect, and I'll admit that right off the top. But the allegation that this is something that might turn an election or is something much bigger than it is, that's the nonsense that we are dealing with.
Arizona's Secretary of State adds the 218,000 ballots represent only about 5.3% of all registered voters. While the air won't change who is eligible to vote for president or Congress, some political experts say that amount of voters could sway tight state and local races and even hotly contested ballot measures on abortion and immigration.
Every time I hear secretaries of state and others saying, oh, you know, there are millions of votes cast, well, that may be, but many, many races in this country are decided by a very small number of votes.
Heritage Foundation's Hans von Spakovsky says during this election, most swing states have the race for the White House too close to call. He adds that after the 2022 election, a number of state lawmakers across the country made improvements to vulnerable voting procedures. Also in Arizona, security measures are being ramped up at polling places, from increased law enforcement presence to donning bulletproof vests and even using drones.
We're taking whatever precautions are necessary to ensure not just the security of the vote, but of all of our employees, our workers at the polls, at our tabulation centers, and of course, keeping first and foremost in mind the safety and security of our voters.
Election officials also want to warn the public about foreign adversaries trying to sow distrust in the upcoming election. Fake videos recently surfaced of destruction of ballots for former President Donald Trump. Well, they were fake, and they are being blamed on Russian hackers. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, the FBI and state officials are investigating a pair of early morning fires involving ballot boxes. The fires took place in Oregon and in neighboring Washington. Police say several hundred ballots were destroyed by the flames. Investigators also found an incendiary device inside one of the ballot boxes just before 3:30 this morning. Then, a few hours later, across the Columbia River in Vancouver, a television crew captured footage of smoke pouring out of a ballot box at a transit station. And as this presidential election draws near, we invite you to pray the novena for the nation with us. We are now on day 2, but it is never too late to join the Franciscan friars and all of us here at EWTN in praying for an election outcome that will protect life and the family. Well, in the Middle East, a new batch of attacks are casting a shadow over talks aimed at reviving ceasefire negotiations. Today, Israel launched an air attack on the city of Tyre in southern Lebanon. Over the weekend, Israeli soldiers raided a hospital in Gaza and detained 100 men suspected of being Hamas militants. Meanwhile, in Qatar, the U.S. and Israel are meeting to discuss bringing back ceasefire talks. But the troubles aren't just in Gaza and in Lebanon. Iran is now swearing revenge after Israel's air attack against its military targets.
We will use all tools available for a decisive and effective response to the Zionist regime's aggression. The type of our answer will be based off the type of the attack.
Well, the Israel Defense Forces say it hit missile and drone manufacturing sites and aerial defenses in multiple areas of Iran, but left the country's energy infrastructure untouched. The attack was carried out as retaliation against Iran's attack on the Jewish state earlier this month, in which it fired nearly 200 missiles at the country. And joining us now with a deeper look into the issue is Farhad Razai with the Philos Project. Good to have you back. Good to see you. As we just heard from that bite, Iran is saying that it will use all of its tools to respond to Israel. Farhad, your thoughts? I mean, do you think this is just rhetoric, or do you think that Iran will actually retaliate? It's something that Vice President Harris said in an interview with CBS over the weekend that would be, quote, a mistake.
Well, I think it's more rhetoric. For now, Iran is not expected to retaliate against Israel. But look, the regime is facing a huge dilemma. If it strikes back at Israel, it could risk making things even worse. At a time when its economy is shaky, its regional proxies are struggling, its military weaknesses are exposed, its legitimacy is down to zero, and also the future of its leadership is uncertain. But if it holds back, it risks looking weak, not just to Israel, but also to its proxies and more importantly, to political rivals at home. So this is the issue. And action could make it, lose even more authority. But a strong response against Israel might put the regime's survival on the line.
Farhad, let me ask you this. If they were to attack, what do you think that would look like? We know so far the Iron Dome has been able to fend off missile attacks. Do you think a ground attack would be a tactic that Iran would employ?
No, I don't think so. Look, Iran is almost over 1,000 miles away from Israel. Ground invasion is off the limit. It's a no-no. It's not an option. But Iran's, its military doctrine has always been, fighting Israel through proxies, through Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and some other terror proxies bordering Israel. But for now, those proxies are struggling, as I mentioned earlier. Hezbollah is fighting for its survival. Hamas is almost weakened, if not eliminated. And Iran's military weakness is also exposed. Honestly, I don't really think Iran has any tangible option against Israel for now.
Israel, as we know, didn't hit the nuclear oil installations in Iran when that strike. But Prime Minister Netanyahu did say today that preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons and stopping its nuclear program is at the forefront of their mind. Is it possible that Israel's attack on Iran isn't over yet?
Look, Iran's airspace is entirely open to Israel. And this is the perfect opportunity for Israel to take out Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Whether this decision is going to be made by the political establishment in Israel or not, I don't know. I'm not privy to their decision. But this is a golden opportunity that if they want to act, if they want to put an end to Iran's nuclear program, the weapon program, this is a perfect opportunity and they should not waste it.
Yeah. Farhad, I know that you're not in the stock market, an expert there, but I want to ask you this, right after the attack, there was a surge in oil prices and that subsided. But do you think, if this conflict continues and if it heats up even more, do you think that will impact the oil market, that is?
Well, as you mentioned, I am not expert in this subject and my answer could be shallow, but I know for the fact that Iran, because of American sanctions, its oil, the impact of taking out its oil in the market would not be significant because China is the only country that buys Iran oil, apart from selling some part of it through smuggling to regional countries. So by attacking Iran's oil and energy infrastructure, I don't think there would be a huge impact on the oil market. But what may impact the oil market is that in retaliation to any potential Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear infrastructure, Iran may try to attack Saudi oil installations and some other regional oil installations, and that would certainly have an impact on the oil market.
Yeah, Farhad, thank you for weighing in. Always appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, the Pentagon says that North Korea has sent about 10,000 troops to train and fight in Ukraine. This follows NATO's confirmation that some North Korean military units are already in the Kursk region. This comes as at least 5 people were killed in a Russian strike on the Kherson region. A residential high-rise building caught fire following the strikes. Meanwhile, reports say Russian forces thwarted an attempt at a cross-border incursion by Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin says the Kremlin is working on ways to respond if the U.S. and NATO allow Ukraine to strike deep inside of Russia with long-range Western missiles. All right, now to Sudan, where more than 120 people were killed in a paramilitary rampage that lasted several days. Meantime, the United Nations is sounding the alarm about extreme concerns regarding a lack of food and supplies.
Almost 4 million children are suffering from acute malnutrition, which is a form of malnutrition that, if not treated, can result in their death from disease and hunger. And we need to do everything to reach children and their families throughout Sudan.
And now to the Philippines, where residents there are battling to recover from the worst storm of the year that left more than 100 people dead. The Weather Service is now warning that Tropical Storm Congre is expected to pass close to the islands tomorrow, bringing heavy rain and severe wind. President Ferdinand Marcos says that many areas are still isolated with people in need of rescue, and now he plans to start working on a major flood control project. The Prime Minister of Japan is refusing to step down after suffering a major loss in the country's elections. Shigeru Ishiba's Liberal Democratic Party lost the majority in the parliamentary election. The party has ruled Japan nearly without interruption since 1955. The loss comes after a series of financial scandals involving the party. Though he refuses to step down, Shigeru says that he will work harder to push for political reform. And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including Fighting for the Faithful. A new report examines religious freedom in the United States. Welcome back. New developments in a story that we brought you last week regarding a black mass at a so-called satanic temple in Atlanta. The Archdiocese of Atlanta says that it has been told the service did not include a desecration of the Holy Eucharist. In a statement, the Archdiocese says in part, quote, "A representative for the Satanic Temple of Atlanta has now provided us with their assurances that they do not have and will not be using at their event a consecrated host." Well, according to a new report, many U.S. states are hostile towards faith-based nonprofits. The Napa Legal Institute found that several states have low rankings for religious freedom, including Massachusetts, Michigan, and Washington. The states that scored the highest on the scale for religious freedom and regulatory freedom, Alabama and Indiana. Napa Legal's vice president and executive director says faith-based organizations play an important role in any flourishing society.
We struggle because we put second things first. And as a result, we have mental health crises, we have crises of poverty, we have crises in education. And faith-based organizations offer our best chance at breaking those cycles because it's through faith-based organizations that people encounter goodness, truth, beauty, and ultimately the person of Christ. And so if faith-based organizations matter at this inflection point in American
Mary Margaret Beecher also says the low marks for Michigan are in part because of its treatment of a Catholic school.
You can look at Sacred Heart Academy in Michigan. It's a school in Grand Rapids. And the way that Michigan's current employment law is written, there are actually restrictions on this Catholic school's ability to hire Catholic teachers to pass on the faith to their students. And so if you're a school where the mission is to witness to the gospel, to instruct the children in the faith, you're going to really struggle to do that right out of the gate.
Well, the report is in its second year, and Beecher says overall, almost all of the changes from last year wound up benefiting religious freedom groups. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, an appeal for peace. The Holy Father remembers the life of a priest killed recently in Mexico. Plus, are the leaders of the Archdiocese in New York and Los Angeles watching the World Series? You bet they are. Appeals for peace and human dignity while honoring the life of a priest recently killed in Mexico.
Quello che riceve la più grazia dell'elemosina è quello che la dà.
At his Sunday address, the Holy Father said Father Marcelo Perez was a zealous servant of the gospel and God's people. Pope Francis adds that he hopes the murder will plant a seed of peace and Christian life. The Pope also asked for an end to violence and war across the world, adding that we must respect all human life, which is sacred. And staying at the Vatican, 70 cardinals, along with more than 300 priests and bishops, concelebrated the closing mass of the Synod on Synodality. It took place inside of St. Peter's Basilica and its newly refurbished canopy. Pope Francis led the faithful in a unique and special veneration of the relic of the chair of St. Peter. Public veneration will be available until December 8th. With some worried about the results of the synod, Cardinal Kurt Koch, prefect of the office that promotes Christian unity, shared this with our team reporting from the Vatican.
We make the clear difference between decision making and decision taking. And in the process of decision making, all people, people of the church must be participated and included in this process, but the decision taking is the responsibility and authority of the bishop and of the Bishop of Rome.
And for further insight, we are joined now by Dr. Matthew Bunson, editorial director for EWTN News and one of the hosts of our daily coverage last week. Matthew, great to be with you today. You've covered the 2 synod sessions in Rome. What were the major takeaways of the past 2 years?
Yeah, well, the reality is that we've been talking about the last 2 years, October of last year, October of this year. Really, this is a 3-year process that Pope Francis launched in 2021, and now we are seeing the culmination of it in this final report that Pope Francis has taken as his own. It's a reminder, too, that synods are supposed to be consultative bodies. They are not, as Pope Francis very famously said, parliaments. So one of the things that this particular synod was asked to do was to focus on the church being truly synodal. The final report, then, very much reflects that more tightened focus that was given to it by Pope Francis. It covers a variety of topics, certainly that have been in the discussion since 2021 and even beyond that. And those include, for example, heightened lay participation in the life of the church, including some forms of decision-making, perhaps processes of decentralization as it relates to authority in making decisions in the church, perhaps heightened powers for episcopal conferences. And one of the more controversial areas throughout this whole process, although much of it has been shifted away from the actual deliberations of the synod, was a question of women deacons, or women and the diaconal ministries. It does find its way into this text, but we'll have to see as this moves forward what all of that looks like.
Yeah, and the final document was received by the Holy Father and then immediately published as is. And here are his words on that.
I do not intend to publish an apostolic exhortation. What we have approved is sufficient. This is why I am making it immediately available to everyone. It is the reason I said that it should be published.
Oh, Matthew, how is this a new direction for a synod's closing document?
Yeah, well, first, as Pope, he can do anything he wants with the final report. But there was kind of a menu that he could choose from in terms of what exactly to do with this report. There was the assumption for a long time that he would write an apostolic exhortation. In other words, he would take this final report, reflect on it, and then write a document. He could perhaps have simply received it and done nothing with it, which is what Pope Paul VI did for the first couple of synods before he actually began writing these exhortations himself. That other option, however, was the one that Pope Francis chose, and that was to make it his own, to attach his name to it, to approve it and then publish it, at which point, as the terms of his own reform of the synod and according to church law, it basically now has much heightened weight, attaching itself to his so-called papal magisterium. Now, the organizers of the synod were very clear on Saturday that this final report is not, as they put it, normative. In other words, this isn't going to be a set of rules that will be immediately applied to the church. Rather, they went back and made the case that this is really a set of guiding principles for the church. And in that light, I think Pope Francis is sending a very important message to the church. Here he had these deliberations at the synod on synodality. He took this document. He can say that he listened to the church, he listened to the participants, and he made it his own. In other words, he turned this final report into an exercise on synodality, and I think he's trying to send that as a message or even as a set of role model for the rest of the universal church.
Well, Dr. Bunson, thank you as always. Always appreciate it, and great coverage out there in Rome.
Thank you very much. Let's keep praying for the Holy Father.
For more on the Synod, EWTN News in depth will have analysis from senior Vatican correspondent Frank Roca on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Finally tonight, 2 church leaders in the United States are giving a new meaning to the term Grand Slam breakfast. Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York and Archbishop Jose Gomez of Los Angeles have placed a friendly wager on the World Series. If the Yankees win, Archbishop Gomez will send some of LA's famous donuts to the Big Apple, and if the Dodgers win, Archbishop Gomez will be feasting on New York bagels. LA leads the best-of-7 series 2-0. Game 3 is tonight at Yankee Stadium, and we'll be watching. And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night, and God bless.